revealed how my daughter-in-law excluded me from family photos while I held her incredible secret. Martha's hands trembled as she stood in the kitchen, the scent of her famous chocolate chip cookies filling the air. Holidays used to sparkle with laughter and joy, but lately each gathering felt tainted by a shadow, the quiet exclusion from family snapshots. Every click of the camera seemed to solidify her invisibility, her once proud role as matriarch reduced to an unrecognized presence at the edges. Each smile, each embrace became an unspoken reminder that her daughter-in-law Lisa, a bustling corporate executive, viewed Martha's life purpose as insignificant. The thought constricted her chest. Didn't she deserve a place in the heart of her family? As she fumbled with the cookie dough, she recalled the gooey treats she used to bake with her late husband, Mark. They had built a family together, fostering love around the kitchen table. But now, with Lisa's ever-increasing success, Martha felt like she was diminishing into yesterday's news. Just last week, she felt the sting as Lisa casually prefaced a family photograph with, "Let's not get too crowded in here." It stung more than just an exclusion. It felt like a verdict on her value as a mother and a grandmother. Her thoughts were interrupted when she stumbled upon a forgotten envelope hidden beneath the cookie tin. A long-forgotten letter from Mark. With trembling fingers, she carefully unfolded the aged paper. As she read his elegant script, the words began to blur with fresh tears, each line revealing a world she never knew existed. A thriving business venture he had grown from the ground up, hidden away beneath their ordinary life. Her heart raced as she processed the implications. All those years, she believed their life was simply woven together through love and family, and here was the undeniable proof of his success. Confusion washed over her. Was this Mark's legacy, one positioned to overshadow Lisa's career ambitions? It danced dangerously with guilt. Did she want to take this from Lisa, who already saw her success as personal triumph? Nevertheless, her resentment brewed quietly, and the more she questioned Lisa's motives, the more she felt herself slipping into a role of inferiority. Lisa was not just ambitious. She embodied a different definition of worth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications, so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air grew denser as the family reunion approached. A festive facade masked the growing chasm between Martha and Lisa. The evening unfolded in predictable fashion, but tension crackled beneath the surface. Martha overheard Lisa spinning tales of her latest accolades, each word piercing through the laughter like a blade. "Another company record shattered," Lisa exclaimed, her eyes gleaming ahead without ever meeting Martha's gaze. The familiar cringes of isolation tightened around her shoulders as Martha fought to contain the swell of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. The room bustled with energy, but Martha felt suspended, knowing she couldn't escape being sidelined any longer. It was a battle built on years of nurture against ambition, tradition against modern ambition. As she caught Lisa's eye across the dining room, the shared history of disappointment loomed heavy. Could she finally voice her hurt? Or would the attempt fracture whatever delicate threads remained? The room grew dimmer, shadows creeping closer as she took a deep breath, struggling with her decision. With the weight of years constricting her chest, Martha couldn't help but wonder, would her next words heal the family or cast her further into the darkness? Everything hung in the balance, and the moment was ripe for confrontation. Yet she felt paralyzed, ready to either reclaim her dignity or dissolve into silence. Martha's heart drummed a relentless beat in her chest as she willed herself to speak. The blurry outlines of family echoed in the background, laughter mingling with the scent of vanilla and chocolate, a bittersweet reminder of moments that seemed unreachable. The burden she carried had grown heavier than the cookie-laden tray beside her, a weight pulling her down like the deepening shadows in the room. She took another breath, attempting to anchor herself amidst the chaotic swirl of emotions. The thought of confronting Lisa filled her with both dread and a flicker of courage that surprised her. For too long, she had retreated into invisibility, assuming a silent role in her own life. This wasn't just about photographs. It was about reclaiming her narrative, her voice hidden beneath layers of obligation and tradition. Eyes on Lisa, Martha analyzed every gleam of success written across her daughter-in-law's face. There was brilliance there, no doubt, but nestled beneath it was the very exclusion that stung like a fresh wound. How could someone she loved fiercely render her invisible? As Martha's breath grew steadier, a familiar determination ignited within her. Perhaps it was time to acknowledge her own strengths, not as a competitor, but as a collaborator with a distinct space in this family tapestry. The urge to speak was almost overwhelming. She could feel the potential change ripple through the room, like a crack of thunder followed by a silence so thick it suffocated the air. Michael, her son, texted under the table, unaware of the internal battle she faced. One subtle glance from him could bolster her resolve, she thought, inviting an additional layer of support. "Mom, you okay?" he asked, concern tracing his brow as he met her gaze. That simple question, laced with care, pulled her back. This moment wasn't only hers. It belonged to her family, too, and she had a right to defend her position in their lives. With a purposeful step, she moved toward the living room, leaving behind the kitchen and the array of cookies that had merely served as a distraction. As she drew closer to Lisa, the laughter faded into a hushed inquiry. All eyes turned toward her. "Can we talk?" The phrase slipped from her lips before she could rethink it. She felt the weight of every stare piercing her resolve, mingling nerves with the growing courage inside her. Lisa blinked, taken aback, but masking it quickly with a confident smile. "Of course, let's step outside." She gestured toward the patio, an invitation edged with uncertainty, but layered with an unspoken challenge. The air between them crackled with electric tension, swirling unsaid words and frustration. As they stepped outside, Martha felt the cool breeze against her skin, a sharp contrast to the previously stifling environment. The stars twinkled above, each a flicker of hope, illuminating a path she had almost silenced within herself. In that moment, Martha realized this confrontation was a critical opening, not just to address Lisa, but to explore a broader narrative, her own story. What was she prepared to reveal? How much of Mark's legacy would she allow to influence her path forward? She inhaled deeply, readying herself, her heart aligned with the conviction building in her core. "You know, Lisa, there's something I need to share about my past and about how I envision our futures colliding." But before she could continue, a shadow flickered across Lisa's face, hinting at tensions bubbling beneath her poised exterior. Without warning, the conversation took a sudden turn. The suggestion of secrets still buried threatened to unravel everything Martha thought she understood about her daughter-in-law and her own place within this family. With quivering anticipation, Martha braced herself for the unraveling truth as she faced the woman whose ambitions had cast her aside. Little did she know, the next words exchanged would force her to confront not only Lisa, but also the uncharted territories of her own identity. As the air thickened with impending revelations, Martha wondered, could she truly embrace the upcoming storm? Or would the burden of the past crush her before she could emerge renewed? Martha narrowed her gaze at Lisa, whose expression had shifted from surprise to an unreadable veil. The unspoken history stretched between them, dense with tension, every unvoiced truth rattling like a caged bird desperate for liberation. Perception collided with reality, urging Martha to lean into the moment, sensing the potential for both partnership and deeper conflict. "Lisa," Martha hesitated, swallowing the words lodged in her throat. Yet, The urgency pulsed like a wound, refusing to heal. This isn't just about the pictures, it's about recognizing each other's place in this family. The proclamation hung in the air, a fragile olive branch extended amidst the gathering storm. Lisa's response was an arch of her brow, skepticism flaring. "And what place is that exactly? You've kept your distance all this time. What else am I supposed to think?" The challenge simmered, her tone a blend of accusation and invitation that nudged Martha into self-reflection. For years, Martha had constructed walls, during family gatherings, during her son's pivotal moments, and even within her own home. Each barrier was an attempt at self-preservation, driven by fear of being overshadowed. But those defenses had inadvertently walled off a part of herself that longed for acknowledgement. I thought it was better that way," Martha admitted, the honesty like a loss of armor. "I didn't want to be a burden or create conflict." "But you are part of this family," Lisa shot back, a spark of indignation igniting her voice. "You never let yourself be seen as anything more than a backdrop. I wanted you there, but I couldn't ensure you'd be willing to step into the light." An uncomfortable truth gripped Martha. For years, she had accepted the shadows of her existence, avoiding risks that could have connected her more deeply to her loved ones, to her own sense of identity. "What if the truth is that I'm ready to step out of that role?" she countered, voice trembling but resolute. "What if I want to share my story, not just with you, but with everyone? My voice matters too." For the first time, Martha noticed the vulnerability beneath Lisa's poised exterior. It was a mirrored reflection, each woman processing their fears. Lisa's aspirations had always seemed so bold, yet those same goals were creating an unsustainable gap between them. "I didn't want to overshadow you, Lisa, but in trying not to, I became a ghost. This cycle of exclusion needs to break. Can't you see how it affects all of us?" Lisa's tension seemed to dissolve, and she stepped forward, an uncharacteristic vulnerability threading through her demeanor. "You're right in ways I didn't want to acknowledge. I pushed you, and in doing so, I pushed you out." In that pivotal moment, a deeper understanding wove through the air, a fragile alliance beginning to take shape. Martha felt a grounding shift within herself, pressure easing as she recognized the potential for collaboration over competition. However, the shadows of the past still loomed behind them. Questions threatened to encroach. What did Lisa mean by pushing her out? What secrets lay beneath the surface of their strained history? Martha's mind raced, aware that they remained on the precipice of discovery. "What else don't I know, Lisa? Are there truths you've hidden from everyone, including me?" Lisa hesitated, her gaze drawn to the stars, betraying a mixture of fear and conflict. The moment balanced precariously, two paths stretching out before them, one leading to deeper trust, the other to potential heartbreak. As the silence deepened, Martha leaned closer, holding her breath as she prepared for Lisa's next words, each heartbeat amplifying the stakes of this unfolding narrative. Would they unravel the past and emerge together, or would the weight of buried truths tear them apart? Martha understood. The next words spoken would either illuminate a path forward or plunge them both into uncertainty. Could she handle the weight of the revelations to come, or would the shadows reclaim her? Martha's heart raced as she awaited Lisa's response, each second feeling like an eternity. The once comfortable silence was now charged with anticipation, a promise of clarity juxtaposed against the billowing uncertainty they both faced. "I wasn't entirely honest about why I wanted you to stay in the background," Lisa finally spoke, her voice trembling under its own weight. "Sometimes, I was afraid you'd take my place in the family. You have this light, Martha, and it overshadowed my own. I thought I could control it by keeping you at a distance." Martha felt the sting of those words, but quickly replaced bitterness with curiosity. Lisa's confession hinted at layers of vulnerability she had never explored, and in that moment she recognized her own fears reflected in Lisa's admission. What if their struggle to be seen had been a shared battle rather than an individual one? Then we both wore masks, haven't we? Martha sighed, cobbling together the remnants of her own facade. I thought isolating myself was the only way to let you shine without interruptions. Maybe I misunderstood what family meant. Their eyes met, an unspoken agreement forming in the quiet space between them. It became an invitation, fragile, yet charged with potential. What if we stripped away the roles we've played all this time? Pretending to be someone we're not only creates more distance, Lisa proposed, her voice a whisper, laden with newfound determination. What if we decided to share the light instead of dividing it? Martha considered Lisa's words. Their relationship had been defined by separation. The hardest truths had been buried beneath layers of pride and fear. But growth required courage, and the possibility of dismantling those walls felt just within reach. She took a deep breath, needing conviction to manifest her bravery. Then I want us to be honest, Lisa. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone else. I don't want to tiptoe around truths anymore, she declared, confidence beginning to seep into her voice. Yet, a counterpoint twisted in her mind. While both welcomed honesty, vulnerability was a double-edged sword, capable of cutting through facades but also exposing raw wounds. What if their truths drove the final wedge between them instead of bridging the chasm? Could she truly bear the weight of what might surface? Let's start slow, Lisa suggested, her gaze locking onto Martha's. What secrets have you carried, and what are you ready to unveil? Martha hesitated, the urge to hold back nagging at her. But she recognized that vulnerability had the potential to heal as much as it could harm. There was power in the stories they held, fragmented pieces of their lives that could finally be woven into a coherent narrative, one that no longer cast them as adversaries, but as sisters navigating shared scars. The picture I've painted of myself isn't as complete as I thought. I've buried so much, my aspirations, my passions, Martha began, the words unfurling like petals. I let my life spin around everyone else while mine sat idling. My biggest secret is my fear of stepping out of that comfort zone, of pursuing what I want. Lisa nodded, her expression shifting into understanding. That's a start, she encouraged softly. It's a scary process, but what we have doesn't have to end in heartbreak. An unexpected wave of relief washed over Martha. Each word exchanged felt like a release, yet an acute awareness of their entangled history loomed ominously nearby. The gravity of their conversation made it clear that true revelations lay ahead, and while this felt like a step towards reclaiming her agency, the prospect of unearthing even deeper truths filled her with trepidation. Martha's voice trembled slightly as she posed the question suspended between them. What would you do if you had to face the unthinkable truths that could change everything for both of us? Lisa's eyes darkened, holding a mixture of resolve and apprehension. Then we must prepare for the consequences, because once we go there, there's no turning back. As their shared honesty opened the door to a cavernous unknown, the weight of the past lingered heavily in the air. The true challenge awaited them beyond. What old secrets would emerge when both stepped fully into the light, and could their relationship withstand the raw truth of their intertwined lives? With only the flickering starlight to guide them, Martha knew they stood at a crossroads, a precarious moment pregnant with possibilities, primed to unfold in ways they hadn't anticipated. Martha's heart pounded in her chest as she weighed Lisa's challenge. The luminescence of honesty felt blinding, revealing their deepest fears and regrets could just as easily illuminate new paths or plunge them into shadows. She sensed that they were at a precipice, their next steps pivotal in reshaping their relationship or shattering it. Let me share the part of me that I've kept hidden, she offered, her voice steady despite the turmoil swirling within. I've always wanted to be a painter. It's what brings me joy, a way for me to connect with myself beyond the roles we've inherited. But every time I turned to a canvas, I stopped. I could hear the whispers of our family telling me who to be. Lisa's brows furrowed, drawing closer. I never knew you felt that way, but why didn't you ever tell me? You could have pursued it while I cheered you on. A flicker of annoyance surged through Martha. Because I didn't want to take away from your dreams either. You've always been the one with the vision, and I've been the one left behind. The confession hung in the air, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Then let's change that, Lisa replied, determination lighting her features. What if we created together? You paint and I'll write. We could combine our crafts. Martha's initial excitement faltered as a new wave of doubt crashed over her. What if I'm not any good? What if my art falls flat? I've kept away from it for so long. Remember, we're stripping away the roles we've played, Lisa reminded her gently. It's not about perfection. It's about expressing ourselves. There was a push and pull within Martha. Even as she admired Lisa's encouragement, the voice inside her whispered of insecurities and failures. Her swirling thoughts festered at the edge of her understanding. What would it mean to bare her soul through paint after years of self-imposed exile? I want to try, Martha finally admitted, squashing her hesitation down. But I need your support. This isn't just about me. It's about unearthing our truths together. Lisa beamed, igniting something within Martha, a flicker of hope amid doubts. Then let's commit to this. No more fears holding us back. They created a makeshift studio in a sunlit corner of the living room, an invitation to vulnerability. As they spread out art supplies next to the pages of Lisa's spirited musings, the boundaries between them began to dissolve. Martha dipped her brush into vibrant paint, feeling the rhythm of creativity course through her. The act felt foreign yet electrifying, awakening dormant ambitions. Hours slipped by as brushes danced across canvases and words filled pages. In the midst of laughter and shared stories, Martha unearthed moments of herself she had thought long extinguished. Yet with every stroke and every line written, a specter hovered in the background, her paralyzing fear of judgment. Okay, let's take a break, Lisa suggested, stretching her arms overhead. We should take stock of what we've created. Martha hesitated, her insecurities clawing at the edges of her resolve. What if the world didn't resonate with her work? What if it doesn't measure up, she whispered, fear tinged with regret. Then we can learn from it, Lisa replied with enthusiasm. Art is subjective. It's not about what others think. It's about what it means to you. There was both a liberating truth and a daunting realization of vulnerability in Lisa's words. For a fleeting moment, Martha cradled the idea of displaying her work, but the thought of exposure sent a chill racing down her spine. And what if I fail? What if I fall short of your expectations? Then that'll be my fault, Lisa smiled knowingly. But look at how far we've come already. We're taking the step which is more significant than anything. Martha felt a surge of determination, but battled the weight of self-doubt as a haunting thought echoed in her mind. What if they unearthed more than just artistic expression? What would happen if both of their hidden fears came flooding to the surface? The answer loomed heavy, mingling with excitement and trepidation. She could feel the potential fracture of their bond based on what might be revealed. As she picked up her brush once more, the stakes escalated, anchoring her to a reality that was both exhilarating and terrifying. A question lingered in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Could they truly face the depths of their intertwined truths without losing themselves in the process? The resolve to push forward surged within Martha as the canvases before her beckoned. A flicker of clarity emerged. This was about more than just creativity. It was about reclaiming the pieces they had lost along the way. "Are we ready for what might come next?" she asked with a quiet intensity, her eyes meeting Lisa's. The tension crackled, ready to leap into the unknown, where truths hung suspended like unmarked canvases, awaiting a daring splash of color. Martha stood motionless in the makeshift studio, her brush poised above the blank canvas like a sword waiting to strike. The vibrant colors sprawled around her, beckoning her forward, but the weight of her doubt anchored her in place. Each hue represented either a part of her soul waiting to surface or a hesitation that had lingered in the shadows for too long. "Remember," Lisa's voice broke through her reverie, "this is for us. It's about finding our voices, not about perfection." That mantra drummed in Martha's ears. She dipped the brush into cobalt blue, swirling it with streaks of gold. These were not just colors. They represented her emotions, the brightness of hope tangled with the depths of fear. The first stroke of paint was a tentative declaration, an audible, "I am here," in a world where she had often felt invisible. But despite the vibrant colors, the cacophony within her remained stark and grating. With every brushstroke, ancient echoes of criticism rose to the forefront. What if her style was too gaudy, too simplistic? A restlessness brewed inside her, urging her to abandon the work altogether. She inhaled sharply, gripping the brush like a lifeline. "I can't believe I'm actually doing this," she muttered, glancing at Lisa, who was scribbling furiously in her notebook. In that fleeting moment, Martha glimpsed a world where creativity was a shared vulnerability rather than a solitary journey of tumult. Just then, a wave of realization washed over her. This was bigger than art. It was about reclaiming agency in her life. "You're doing great," Lisa chimed, her eyes bright with encouragement. "Don't think about anyone else." Martha's heart tightened. They both knew she wasn't just wrestling with personal insecurities. They were true collaborators, their bond growing in this intimate space. Driven by a newfound purpose, she set her sights back on the canvas. It wasn't only about creating, but confronting the abyss of her fears. Laughter erupted as Lisa read aloud snippets of her writing, funny, heartfelt, painfully honest reflections. Each word hung heavy with resonance, weaving together their shared history and amplifying the stakes. Inspired, Martha began painting not just what she saw, but what she felt. This was the true essence of artistic expression. She was capturing her tumultuous journey, flaws and all. But a darkness lurked at the edges of her mind, a nagging fear that soon their open dialogue would reveal not just her insecurities about art, but deeper wounds hidden even from herself. The question gnawed at her. If they unearthed hidden truths, could their fragile trust withstand the weight of raw honesty? As if anticipating her thoughts, Lisa paused. "Do you think we're brave enough to go deeper? What if we wrote about our fears as openly as we paint?" The proposal struck a chord within Martha, opening a conduit to emotions bottled for far too long. She considered the possibility of sharing the stories only whispered in the shadows, a tapestry woven with loss, inadequacy, and yearning. Each revelation had the potential to either deepen their connection or create a chasm between them. "I think I am ready," Martha finally answered, feeling a tremor of exhilaration. "But it means facing things I haven't dared to confront." The words tumbled from her lips, and as she spoke, a sense of empowerment washed over her. There was a shared understanding embedded in that moment, a promise to confront whatever lies ahead together. But as she pondered what truths she'd reveal, a flicker of doubt returned. Could they do it? Could they brave the winds of honesty without shattering the very foundation of their bond? With a deep breath, Martha picked up her brush once again, resolved to paint not just her fears, but everything she hadn't yet shared. She longed to show Lisa that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a path toward resilience. Yet as colors began to bloom on the canvas, her mind spiraled. What if revealing too much coerced them into paths they were not prepared to travel? What if the truths that bridged them also became the very thing that tore them apart? It was now evident. Each brushstroke could lead to confrontation, and an exploration of their true selves was both terrifying and liberating. Determined, Martha pressed forward, searching for the words and images to capture the complexity of her existence. As the sun dipped lower, it cast shadows across their work, mingling fears with the brilliance of the courageous. In that flickering light, the tension hung thick. Could they face the abyss together, or would the darkness consume what they had built? The question loomed ominously, anchoring itself in Martha's heart as she painted on, unaware that this journey toward healing would require an even greater leap of faith. What if the art they created revealed secrets that not only defined them, but would also reshape the very fabric of their relationship? As the last rays of sunlight seeped through the windows, Martha felt as though she were trapped in a liminal space, suspended between her fears and the emerging colors on the canvas. She swirled the brush once more through shades of crimson, thinking of the rawness, the heat, the intensity of all that lay concealed within. The decision to dive deeper, to expose her vulnerabilities with both her art and her writing, was exhilarating and terrifying, a paradox that gripped her tightly. The emotional weight bore down like a dense fog as she forced herself to think about the truths that had long been veiled, emotions tied to her family, her career aspirations, and dreams that had slipped away into shadows. Each revelation felt like a thread, fraying and tangled, but also potent enough to weave something new. She had been a silent observer of her life for so long. What if being honest with Lisa about her struggles was the catalyst for breaking free from that silence? "What do I write about first?" she mused aloud, staring at her reflection in the paint-splattered mirror across the room. The question twisted in her mind, and the quiet surroundings were contrasting and unsettling against the inner storm brewing within her. What if, in unearthing her experiences, she inadvertently hurt Lisa, added weight to their budding friendship that was still trying to understand its limits? "Start with the first memory that comes to mind," Lisa suggested, still immersed in her writing, her voice soothing in the tense air. "It doesn't have to be perfect. Just be honest." Martha nodded, though a clenching sensation in her stomach protested against the suggestion. The first memory that flooded in was of her younger self, sitting in the corner of a flower shop, eager for her mother's attention, shoulders hunched and small hands wrapped around a bouquet of daisies. The feeling of longing and insignificance pinned her down as it had so many times before. How could she translate that experience into art without stepping into the abyss of her insecurities? As she dipped the brush into the fresh paint again, preparing to capture that moment, a heaviness crept in. Each stroke brought a flood of doubts. Could she give voice to the child whose worth was often overshadowed by noted criticisms? She became hyper-aware of her surroundings, the paintbrush trembling in her grip. Suddenly, she felt an electrical pulse of resolve. Instead of shaking under the weight of expectations, she could infuse her work with the very voice that had been silenced for too long. This moment was not about perfection, it was about authenticity. What if sharing these layers of herself could become a bridge, not a barrier, reinforcing their connection? Martha recalled the nights spent rehashing old wounds with her therapist, each session slowly prying open the sealed vault of her memory. She remembered the power that honesty wielded, how it could seek to belong rather than isolate. That realization ignited something fierce within her. "Okay, let's do this," she whispered to herself, the brush poised to dance on the canvas. The crimson burst forward, a radiant declaration of struggle and resilience. Flashes of memory, fragmented yet powerful, guided her strokes. Each image of disappointment or shame melted into the colors, fusing into a narrative both painful and freeing. She let the brush roam, painting not just her childhood, but her struggles to gain recognition as an artist, the societal pressures that had perpetually loomed above her, and ultimately, the need for acceptance in a world that often felt dismissive. With every brushstroke, Martha's resolve strengthened. Perhaps this journey of vulnerability, both with her art and Lisa, might lead her not only to self-acceptance, but a deeper understanding of friendship and the shared experience of being human. Yet just as she began to feel the momentum of clarity, a sudden doubt hit her, an ice-cold wave freezing that warmth. What if her revelations pushed Lisa away? What if the truth introduced complexities into their friendship that neither was prepared to traverse? As Martha hesitated, brush hovering above the canvas, she realized this moment would not only define her art, but also challenge her perception of intimacy in relationships. Was she truly ready to confront the ghosts of her past and create a portrait of honesty that could connect or sever their bond? The question loomed larger now, casting a shadow over the bright colors she had begun to unleash. Martha inhaled deeply, teetering on the edge of decision, unsure if she had the courage to dive fully into that vulnerable abyss, but aware that staying still felt just as perilous. It was time to take the plunge or risk drowning in her own hesitations. With uncertainty reigning heavily on her heart, she pressed the brush down onto the canvas, determined to etch her truth, even if that meant risking everything she had begun to build with Lisa. How far would she go to unveil herself in the art she created, and in the friendship that was still finding its footing? Each stroke of crimson peeled back layers of memory, a cathartic release that both invigorated and frightened Martha. She danced between the thrill of expression and the looming fear of rejection. Would her creation resonate, or would it echo back with the weight of her insecurities? The vibrant paint, so much a metaphor for her emotional journey, threatened to drown her in both beauty and vulnerability. Her hands moved autonomously as fluorescent hues bled together, forming cascading waves of color that reflected her inner chaos. Each blended stroke told a story. Each misalignment was an admission of her imperfections. With every brushstroke, Martha began accessing not just her memories, but the deepest corners of her desires and frustrations. The canvas transformed into a battleground between her longing for acceptance and the fear of exposure. "Is it too much?" she whispered under her breath, frustration mingling with terror. The question hung in the air, reflecting her own disbelief. As an artist, she had always sought validation, but not at the expense of authenticity. There, in the isolation of her studio, the doubt seeped into her mind like ink smudged on paper. What if the truth she unveiled became unbearable not just for her, but for Lisa? Could unfiltered honesty strengthen their connection? Or would it unravel the delicate fabric they were weaving? A part of her argued that belonging required a risk, an openness that invited both acceptance and possibility. Yet another part recoiled at the thought of presenting her past, raw, exposed, crafted into memories both tender and hard. The deep rush of her emotions began breaking through her resolve. She recalled moments spent with friends and family where authenticity brought them closer. And yet, her heart echoed with memories of disapproval, the heavy silence following misunderstood words. These contradictions echoed loudly as she stood at the precipice of sharing herself, leading her to question whether her art was a sanctuary or a weapon. Would Lisa be able to embrace this side of her? Would she be prepared to wade through Martha's past of neglect and dreams deferred, or would the weight of those secrets create a rift instead of a bond? As the thoughts spiraled, she paused, allowing the vibrant hues before her to settle in her mind. Each color was a memory, palpable and urgent, vying for her attention. Slowly, she dug deeper, remembering her passion kindled through those childhood flowers, how those small moments of beauty had countered the indifference that often shadowed her. The daisies, once simply a prop for attention, now demanded recognition in their own right. They symbolized her tender heart, yearning for light amid the shadows. Her brush, which moments ago felt like a source of liberation, now became a deflection of the tumult inside her. She understood that she could not portray her struggles without confronting them first, and even more challenging would be sharing this new truth with Lisa. As she put the brush down briefly, glancing at the canvas, her thoughts coalesced into a potent realization. She could honor her pain without being entirely defined by it. Martha sensed the weight of her journey had the potential to influence not just her art, but her relationship with Lisa. Each expression was a conversation, offering insights into her world, emotions, and dreams. Decisively, she picked up the brush again, her grip firmer now, and began layering vibrant yellows and deep blues over the crimson. Shadows of fear mingled with glimmers of hope, shaping a picture more intricate than she had ever anticipated. The pieces were colliding in her mind, a mosaic of aspirations tangled with vulnerability. Then another pang of doubt hit her. Would Lisa embrace this unveiled version of Martha? Or would her reflections shatter the fragile connection they were cultivating? With tension hanging thick in the air, Martha found herself at another crossroads. One path led toward deeper intimacy and honesty, while the other promised safety, a retreat into silence that could preserve their relationship but at the cost of authenticity. The canvas before her now reflected not just her artistic expression, but the looming complexity of her human experience. In that moment, amid the vibrancy sprawled across the canvas, she decided she could no longer shy away from genuine expression. But as she surrendered to the brush's motion, the question whispered softly in her mind. What if her deepest vulnerability became a revelation that Lisa could not bear? Martha dipped into her colors again, each brush stroke meaningfully deliberate, yet the shadows of uncertainty danced in her peripheral vision, waiting to engulf her. Would she be brave enough to unveil every aspect of herself, or would some layers remain shielded in fear? In embracing her truth, would it shatter or save the budding friendship she cherished? The surge of emotions propelled her forward, even as trepidation lingered just behind her resolve. Taking a deep breath, she painted on, hoping the revelations drawn onto the canvas would bring clarity, both to herself and to the friendship blooming just outside her door. As the brush glided over the colorful tapestry emerging from the canvas, Martha grappled with the swirling emotions within her. The vivid strokes were not mere expressions. They were anchored in an impending decision that loomed ever closer. Each layer of paint summoned memories from her past, calling her to face the tempest she had often silenced. The whispers of doubt, however, refused to be silenced. Martha contemplated the hues she chose, recognizing how they mirrored her soul's uncertainties. With intense focus, she reflected on the canvas. It was the embodiment of her heart, raring to unveil mysteries of resilience and vulnerability she had long buried. Yet, pushing herself into the open, felt dangerously exposed. What if her candidness fractured the connection she had begun to nourish with Lisa? Her heart raced as realization struck. The art she created was a pathway to her truth. It reflected not only her fears, but the possibility of connection. The medium allowed her to expose herself as an emerging artist and an evolving individual. But the thought of revealing the essence of her struggles was paralyzing. The warm light streaming through the studio window flickered as shadows danced around her. Martha placed the brush down once more and studied her work from a distance. The colors vibrated with potential, yet something felt lacking, like a missing thread crucial to tie the whole piece together. She recalled her mother's laughter, tinged with bitterness from past grievances, and how those memories dictated decisions that shaped her identity. Beyond the bright palette lay undercurrents of resentment and loss, whispering warnings that crept beneath her skin. The more she painted, the more the urge to confront those past grievances gnawed at her insides. Could she transform her pain into art without losing herself? The clock ticked ominously, counting the moments until Lisa would arrive. Her mind swirled with conflicting intentions. Was she prepared to risk presenting her authentic self, or would it prove too much? Martha paced the wooden floor, inhaling deeply as she suppressed the growing anxiety. She could feel the intention of each stroke ebbing, overtaken by anxiety about the repercussions of her revelation. Turning back to her canvas, she scrutinized the beautiful chaos before her. A kaleidoscope of colors was challenging her perceptions. "Why can't I let this go?" she whispered, her voice breaking the silence of her studio. The answer felt like an unspoken vow. She had allowed fear to define her relationships, burying long-held grudges in an artful facade. Perhaps it was time to rearrange the narrative buried within her heart. Time to stop being the spectator of her life, afraid of confronting the illusions casting shadows on her creativity. Yet, the question loomed. Did she possess the strength to embrace her transformed identity, sharing this evolving art and self with Lisa? Martha picked up the brush again, her grip steadying as determination surged through her veins. As vibrant green blended with soft pink, she felt a volatile energy stir within her. There was strength hidden beneath the complexity, a rawness that described her journey, giving voice to inner struggles she had long not acknowledged. But just as life's tumult demands authenticity, so too did her impending confrontation with Lisa. What would the validation of a shared truth mean for their relationship? Would it empower them or seep away their budding connection, transforming the art into a weapon against each other? As she layered her thoughts onto the canvas, Martha's resolve hardened. She realized that every brushstroke symbolized not just the colors of her past, but also the resilience she had bottled up inside. The time for revelation had arrived. A sudden knock on the door startled her. The moment of truth had come with Lisa's impending arrival. The weight pressed against her chest as she stepped back from the canvas, scrutinizing her creation one last time. Deep fear intertwined with hope, mingling until they formed an exquisite dance, the very essence of her life. Could she truly face the world with every color of her experience and let it define the bond she had forged with Lisa? Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself. As she opened the door, the buzzing anticipation within reverberated through her bones. What lay ahead would demand courage beyond words. With the doorway ajar, a lingering silence enveloped them, both knowing what was about to unfold would change everything. Would the truths behind their connection emerge as a melody harmonizing their paths together, or a cacophony of discord? Martha stood on the threshold, heart racing as she opened the door to Lisa. The tension in the air felt palpable, a mix of nervous excitement and the reverberations of truth just waiting to be spoken. The canvas behind her pulsated with color, reflecting the culmination of emotions she had long suppressed. Every brushstroke conveyed not only her artistry, but also a willingness to confront her past, and perhaps that of her daughter-in-law. "Hey, Mom," Lisa greeted, stepping into the sunlit room, eyes quickly drawn to the canvas. "You've been busy." Her voice was light, but the intensity behind it hung like a curtain between them. Martha swallowed, her pulse quickening. "Can we talk?" The words, simple yet weighted, caught in her throat as she stepped aside, allowing Lisa to enter her world. Ignoring the vibrant artwork for the moment, they settled on a pair of chairs, each an embodiment of their differing experiences, yet both crucial to the evolving story they were writing together. Silence enveloped them, thick and weighted with the unsaid things that both wanted to address but feared to touch. "Your work looks incredible," Lisa finally said, gazing back at the colors, her admiration evident, yet her expression bore the hints of trepidation. "What inspired that?" Martha took a deep breath. The time had come to break the silence. "I've discovered a lot about myself lately, about how every moment of fear has shaped me and how I've kept parts of me hidden." She gestured towards the canvas, the swirls of color now feeling like lifeblood in the room. "I think time has come to reveal these hidden truths, to not just you, but to everyone." Lisa leaned in, curiosity piqued. "What do you mean?" "I've spent so long feeling like I was in the background," Martha admitted, the liberating sense of vulnerability flooding her system. "But now I realize that embracing my passions, my past, and yes, my mistakes, can also ignite something beautiful between us. I want my voice, my story, to shine along with yours." Lisa's brow furrowed for a moment, before her features softened, almost as if they were meeting on common ground. I thought you didn't want to stand out, that you preferred to be a quiet support. That's not what I wanted at all, Martha replied, her resolve strengthening with each word. I thought stepping back would allow you to shine, to not dim your light. But now I see that it was simply a misunderstanding of what family means. We all have our lights. Mine deserves to be seen too. The realization hung in the air, shimmering with something profound as Lisa considered her mother-in-law's words. Suddenly, the barrier they had erected began to tremble. "Mom, I thought you didn't want to be involved," she confessed, a flicker of realization crossing her face. "I pushed you away because I was afraid you'd overshadow me, not realizing that you were trying to protect me." Martha's heart soared, a warmth spreading through her as they began to peel back the layers that had kept them apart. "I've let my fears dictate the pace of our relationship," she admitted. "But I want to change that. I want to walk alongside you, not behind you." "Then let's do this together," Lisa said, her voice steady. "Let's create something new, a shared endeavor. Art that embodies our truths and showcases how we can support, rather than overshadow, each other." Martha's breath caught. The suggestion carried promise, a way to intertwine their lives through mutual exploration. "I'd love that," she said, a spark igniting in her chest. "I think we can tell a story that goes beyond just our individual experiences. We can showcase what it means to navigate this world together." Empowered by their exchange, Martha grabbed a fresh canvas, a clean slate that held infinite possibilities. They worked side by side, their brushes mixing colors, laughter intertwining with focus as they breathed life into a mural embodying their newfound alliance. In that moment, Martha experienced an incredible sense of growth. She knew she had made the conscious choice to step into her identity, unapologetically showcasing her voice without sacrificing the bond she cherished. As they painted, colors danced fluently on the canvas, representing stories of struggle and strength as they both shared their insecurities and triumphs out loud. Boundaries blurred, and with each stroke, they transformed their past onto the canvas, creating a visual narrative, two distinct yet entwined lives embracing the complexities of family. Hours slipped through their fingers like streams of brilliant color, until the day gave way to night. They stepped back to observe their work, tears shimmering in Martha's eyes as she saw layers of love and understanding shimmering under the surface. "We did this," Martha breathed, humbled by the moment. The fabric of their relationship had shifted, fortified in shared vulnerability and mutual respect. A radiant evening settled around them as they stood shoulder to shoulder, each accepting the complexities of their identities, as individuals and as family. And as the sparkle of satisfaction filled Martha's heart, she knew she had reclaimed her narrative. She turned to Lisa. "We're just beginning." The lingering shadows from before had fallen away, replaced with renewed hope and courage. Martha felt solid confidence welling from within, a newfound recognition of her own competence and significance. With determination coursing through her veins, she resolved to follow this path of collaboration, embracing every facet of her evolving self. The photographs that once felt exclusionary now bore an invitation. She would shape her story in the light and allow it to shine brightly for all to see. This was her moment, finally emerging from the edges and taking a place in the center of her family's life. Don't miss this journey of transformation. You need to subscribe now to stay tuned for more emotional stories that showcase personal overcomes. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find their path through these inspiring narratives. Comment below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Martha's journey. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.